So this is a passage from the Bhagavad Gita, from the chapter on meditation. And I picked bits and pieces from within the verses. So it's not necessarily like written all together, but I picked the points that I really wanted to focus on for today's meditation. Okay. So this is in a sort of a conversational style where Krishna is speaking to Arjuna and he's giving him advice on how to attain union with the truth, the one reality. So let's read it out and then we're going to do a guidance on it. So Krishna said, those who aspire to the state of yoga should seek the self in inner solitude through meditation. With the body and mind controlled, they should constantly practice one-pointedness, free from expectations and attachment to material possessions. Make your mind one-pointed in meditation, and your heart will be purified. In the still mind, in the depths of meditation, the self reveals itself. Beholding the self by means of the self, an aspirant knows the joy of peace, joy and peace of complete fulfillment. So beholding the self by means of the self, an aspirant knows the joy and peace of complete fulfillment. Wherever the mind wanders, restless and diffuse in its search for satisfaction without, lead it within. Train it to rest in the self. Abiding joy comes to those who still the mind. It is true that the mind is restless and difficult to control, but it can be conquered, Arjuna, through regular practice and detachment. Okay. So many points here to touch on, and we're going to get through them one by one. We'll do a sort of like a summary of this towards the end. However, let's begin with our guidance first. So what I want you to do is the first instruction we're going to start with is with the body and mind controlled. We should practice one-pointedness. Okay, so the first step here, I would like you to simply bring stillness to the body. It is the restlessness of the mind which reflects in the body as fidgetiness, the constant compulsion to move and adjust and just always be in some sort of motion. So firstly, as we begin our practice today, try to do nothing else other than just being still in the body. This itself can become a practice because you notice when you still the body, the constant compulsion to move. And instead of just feeding those compulsions, those impulses, you remain still. As that restlessness becomes weak in the body, it also then reflects in the mind. So the first step is just remaining still in the body, observing the impulses but not feeding them. And as we do the rest of our practice today, do your best to keep the body still. If it's an absolute need to, adjust yourself or move, you can do so. But whatever pain is there, whatever resistance is there, whatever craving is there on the bodily level to move or adjust, just learn to observe, yet not identify. Learn to notice, but not feed into it. You have the power to do so. Because from here, we can begin the real work. So when you close your eyes and you still the body, now you come upon the inner restlessness, the mental restlessness. You notice the mind thinking about me and my life, my spiritual practice, my meditation, what I'm being told, if I like it or not, if it's good for me or not. What will I get out of this? When will it happen? How will it happen? What will it look like? How will I know when it's happening? This is what Krishna describes as the mind constantly seeking satisfaction outside. How do we bring this mind inward into the self? If you try to battle the mind, if you try to control the mind, rest like by suppressing it or forcing yourself not to think, it may work for short periods of time, but it is very limited. To make the mind one-pointed and inward, there's something much simpler at your disposal. The mind is constantly interpreting and judging and projecting and expecting. But you see the mind being restless in the way. There's awareness of the mind being restless, wanting, questioning, doubting, resisting, craving, projecting, expecting. Your task is not to gather the mind and bring it inward in some way. It is only to recognize and notice and become aware of yourself, the seer of mind. In the recognition of that which is already prior to and subtler than the mind collapses into this inwardness. You, yourself, you see the mind being restless and going out into the world of senses and creating projections about it. Forget about what it is doing. Instead, notice yourself. Notice your own presence. Become aware of your very own awareness. This is stillness. This is inwardness. The mind wants to think about awareness. But even this thinking about awareness is something you're already aware of. Forget what is being thought. Hold no interest in the mind's projections and concepts about awareness. Simply acknowledge the awareness from where you already know the restless mind. Stop being concerned with the mind altogether. Instead, only be interested in and curious about noticing this awareness from where you know all things. Krishna said that the joy that resides beyond the senses is revealed in the depths of meditation. When you close your eyes and you still the body, you are sort of withdrawing from the senses. And when you stop being so concerned with the mind, when you stop being so interested in all of the things it is saying and projecting, then you also withdraw from the mind, which is constantly immersed in the realm of the senses. If you remain so interested in the mind, which itself is focused only in the realm of the senses, constantly seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, then we also just remain totally lost in that conceptual prison in the realm of the senses. The depths of meditation is not in some deep direction within you or outside of you or here or there. It lies in the simple recognition of the awareness that you are, the simple awareness of your being. Inwardness is a becoming aware of that which is subtler than the senses, that which is subtler than the mind, which is constantly focused in the senses. From where you are aware of all that you know. Beholding the self by the means of the self, an aspirant knows the joy and peace of complete fulfillment. Hold on to yourself. Become aware of yourself. This feeling of self, this amness, the sense of identity. Wherever the mind wanders, restless and diffuse in its search for satisfaction without, lead it within. Train it to rest in the self. in the very moment that you notice your own awareness, in the very moment that you become aware of the fact of your being, I am, the mind is led inwards in its resting place, in its source. To still the mind, you have to become aware of the place of total stillness from where you are already aware, from where you already see the restless mind. This is the quickest means to stillness. You, the seer of the restless mind, are not restless. The awareness of the restless mind is not restless. You don't have awareness. You are the awareness. In which everything that appears to be life as you know it comes and goes, in which the person that you take yourself to be appears as a changeful experience. Just rest the mind inside of this awareness of I am, awareness of awareness. Dwell in this conceptless beingness. And the seeming boundary between you and life, you and God, you and reality will start to be seen as illusory, transparent. In the still mind, in the depths of meditation, the self reveals itself. Beholding the self by the means of the self, an aspirant knows joy and peace of complete fulfillment. You cannot be fulfilled as a person. Fulfillment is veiled by personhood. In the awareness of being, in awareness of I am, in that conceptless beingness, that is a sacrificing of the person that you take yourself to be. That is a undressing yourself from the mask of personhood. And in that undressing, you come to know your true identity. Within which the imprint of lack, of separation, is absent. Therefore, fulfillment, wholeness, completeness. You are not the mind trying to jump into this beingness. You are not the mind trying to become aware. You are that which is aware. You are the awareness in which you know the mind, from where you see the mind, being restless or quiet. If you keep trying to chase awareness as an object that you can hold on to, you will continue to fail. We must start to recognize that it is what it is knowing this very moment. It is what knows. I know, I am aware. Awareness is. If you keep trying to be still, making an effort to be still, you will continue having a hard time being still. Instead, start to notice that you are already in the place of stillness. Again, that which is aware of the mind is not restless. Awareness and stillness are inseparable. Fire is hot, awareness is still. It is in the very nature of it, of yourself. So this meditation is about noticing your true position. We are transcending the personal identity. We are transcending the mind through just simply noticing our true position already here and now, as it is, as I am. This is what it means that the self reveals itself in the depths of meditation. We are simply noticing where I already am, how I already am, what I already am. And through that, snapping out of the hypnosis of what I am not. How can stillness be achieved? It only remains to be noticed as already the case. Mm-hmm. So to wrap up today's lesson, first point, still body and mind. As long as the body and mind are absolutely restless, there can be no chance at self-knowledge. As long as the body is just constantly fidgety and compulsive and craving, and we're feeding into those things, forget about it. It's going to remain lost in this realm of senses. As long as the mind is in constant state of worry, projection, oh, what's going to happen to me, my life? How, am I going to be okay tomorrow? Oh, this person said this to me. Oh, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Will I succeed? Will I fail? Just constant, endless personal worry. Forget about it. Veil. There can be no deeper insight, no understanding, no wisdom in such a mind. So, what do we do about this? We still the body. In moments of practice, completely still. Even throughout the day, you notice your constant fidgetiness and just start to bring stillness to the body. And the mind, how do you still the mind? One, through letting go of incredible interest in it. If you keep feeding importance to what the mind says, it will continue to be restless. If you continue to be so concerned about who you are as a person and the life you're living, and if you will do this or that, or get this or that, gain this or that, forget about it, right? It will just remain restless. So one, we have to diminish the amount of interest that we have in the mind. That is what we can call detachment or non-attachment. And how do we still the mind? Second, by already recognizing the place of stillness from where we see the mind being restless. In that noticing of what we are, of that very awareness of our being, the mind automatically comes into its resting place, its source, which is the very awareness from which it arises, in which it appears. So still the body and the mind. Second point, be free from expectation and attachment from what this will bring me. Right? The very first sentence, it says, practice this one-pointedness, free from expectations and attachment to material possessions. Even with this practice, we're just trying to get somewhere. We're trying to get something. We're trying to make something happen. That itself is the restlessness of mind, which you observe. It is not your activity. It is not you. Must stop identifying with it. Stop being so interested in it. In this practicing, in this meditation, the expector must dissolve. The wanter must dissolve. Quite paradoxical. You do the meditation to be free of all of these things, but it's not a destination. You have to let go of wearing those costumes. You have to unmask yourself in the very meditation. And it is all done in the very noticing of what you are. In the conceptless awareness of awareness, all masks melt away, all wanting melts away, all expectations melt away. When they arise, that means you have allowed the mind to go outward again. So simply return to your noticing of your being, awareness. So free from expectation and attachment from what this will bring me. In the noticing of your being, you are free from the desire for even enlightenment or spiritual advancement or progress. It's all mental desires, concepts. Awareness of being is conceptless, desireless. There's no notion of enlightenment there. It's simply being what you are. Next, Krishna said, make your mind one-pointed in meditation and your heart will be purified. So in that conceptless awareness of being, all misunderstandings, all illusions that you are bought into, all of these tendencies that hypnotize you, all these mental impressions, all of them start to melt away. The whole character starts to be purified, more and more pure, because it has to reflect this greater understanding. As we said earlier, a mind which is totally worldly, lost in the world, and a body which is totally also lost, fidgety and compulsive, they're too muddy, they're too dirty, they cannot reflect the truth. The truth cannot reflect in such a mind and body. Through meditation, through this practice, these elements are purified. These misunderstandings and belief systems all weaken and wither away and becomes empty. And that is where wisdom is allowed to arise. When you make space for wisdom to arise, only then it arises. Emptiness is the prerequisite. In meditation, you have no conviction. You have no belief. You have no future, no past. You don't even have a personal identity. You simply are. That is the quote-unquote space in which wisdom arises. That is the prerequisite to wisdom, emptiness. So our perception, our understanding, it all becomes subtler and subtler, more and more pure. Second to last. Mind constantly seeks satisfaction outside. Our job is to lead it within, right? It will continue to go outward, constantly creating descriptions, projections, expectations, past, future, yes, no, like, dislike, want, not want. Your job is to notice this and stop feeding it interest, stop feeding it importance, and simply return to your very own awareness. Return to that which you already are always, from where you see the restless mind. That is what it means to lead the mind within. Even in the teachings of Ramana Maharshi, that's the main thing, right? Bring the mind, rest the mind in the source, in the heart. And then lastly, it is difficult. So he says, it is true that the mind is restless and difficult to control, but it can be conquered, Arjuna, through regular practice and detachment. We seek for this to work instantly. Maybe you practice for a few months and you're like, where are my results? I've been doing this. Why am I not getting all of these insights? In that way, we're very immature. We want the world of this, but we are not willing to give ourselves. We practice for a few days and we want everything out of it. So understand that the mind will be restless. It is in its own impressions, constantly seeking things. It is under those certain impressions very strongly. All this is purified and quote unquote controlled through daily practice. This has to become the main thing. Through daily practice of meditation, it can go no other way. If we are doing our best to practice these things that we are discussing, it can go no other way. As we empty ourselves, this life is ready to reveal itself to us. The self is ready to reveal itself to us. It is us that we are very closed off. We are too lost in the mind, which is lost in the sense perceptions. So in this conceptless awareness of being, awareness of self, this whole restlessness, this whole suffering and misery and attachment and whatnot, they all die out little by little. So give to this teaching what you hope to get out of it. You can't expect to get out of it so much in such little time, yet be unwilling to give of yourself. You know, we all have to observe that tendency within us. That is a very childlike, immature tendency that we all have, where we want to remain attached to our convictions, our maybe what we have been taught, what we believe, what we hold to be important. We don't want to. That's the true renunciation. Renunciation is not on the level of the physical. It is on the level of the mental. Are you willing to become totally empty and free? Are you willing to become totally conceptless? That is the trade-off for wisdom. So we have to observe that within ourselves, and we have to learn to let go. It starts with moments of practice in your sit-down meditation, and then it has to seep through into your day-to-day, your entire waking experience. So it can be conquered through regular practice and detachment. Regular practice is, right, first and foremost, your sit-down practice twice per day, at least for 20 to 30 minutes each. If you're neglecting this, get real with yourself. Stop running away from silence. It has to be said again and again. Notice how many things you put before this. Maybe you practice silence only if everything else in your day goes perfectly. If everything else goes well, then I can practice. But if I'm encountering a problem in life or my day is too busy, I don't have time for this. It's nonsense. You have time. You just have to prioritize it. So regular practice, it starts with the sit down, and then it also throughout the day, you have to do the same practice as much as you can. And detachment. Detachment is that element where you are learning to lose interest in the constant descriptions of the mind, projections of the mind. It sounds like a lot, but actually once you get started, it all seamlessly flows together. There's nothing difficult about this. It's just learning to remember and having that aspect of devotion and care towards this. So all in all, as we continue to really abide by this teaching, live by this teaching, do our wholehearted best to practice it, then the rest takes care of itself. It is not up to us. The self reveals itself. Mm-hmm.